the major headache for most Ghanaians during the rainy season is, you guessed right, flooding, which has caused devastation in recent times. A typical example is the June 3 flood and fire disaster, which claimed over 100 lives. Poor planning of towns and cities, poor drainage systems, improper disposal of refuse, silting and choking of drains, improper enforcement of laws on building construction, and others have been identified as the major causes of flooding. Well, today on the Pulse, we will have an in-depth analysis of flooding in Ghana, especially the major towns and cities, and try to find a workable solution to this perennial problem. To do this, I'll be joined shortly by the president of the Ghana Institute of Planners, Alfred Kwesi-Poku, and a hydrologist, Ebenezer Sikere. They are joining us today to explore the solutions and also interrogate what government has done in the past few years, even before the flooding started some 2 weeks ago. I remember already we've seen people die in the central region. Today we're learning of 5 dying in the central region. Let's first hear from President John Mahama. He spoke last week telling us the measures that have been put in place to ensure that this year's flooding is not as bad as what we saw in 2015. We'll have that for you shortly, but let me get an update on that sorry situation in the central region. We're learning of 5 people dying in the flooding. We can speak to Richard Gonyako, our central area correspondent. We know that NADMO has begun their rescue mission in trying to find some more bodies that have been trapped as a result of the flooding. Richard, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Right, so we know those who are dead, 5 at the last time of reporting. Do you have an update on the casualties?
Well, there have not been more or further casualties as reported in the morning. What we have is some destruction caused to property and some destruction of the roads as a result of the flooding. You know, I told you what happened at Tabazi Junction on the road between Takoradi and Cape Coast, where there were some trenches that were dug by some residents because the water or the flood was gushing into their rooms and other things. Others had to vigil the whole of the night because they didn't get any place to lay their heads. NADMO responded quickly. This morning they've gone there to give them some relief items, and they are advising that they should find some location at certain higher ground so that they move from where they presently are. And these places, it's an annual ritual. Every year it happens to them. And so every year the place gets flooded. I remember 2 years ago and last year the vice president visited there when there was heavy flooding that also took place in the central region. And some of them were even asked to get some settlements elsewhere, but they said that they really needed that place. They want to still stay at that place. So that is really what happens. But in all of these places, it boils down to planning, because when there is even a fire outbreak, it makes it difficult for the firefighters to even get into the respective homes.
And thankfully, we'll be interrogating that matter shortly. But Richard, tell me, for the NADMO and the rescue mission you're on, what have they found today?
Well, they found was extensive damage, and so the people were counting their costs in the morning. Other television sets, others too. There were other shop things that were in their shop, like some milk, Milo, and other things that had been soaked with water and all of that one. So they are still counting their costs, and the NADMO is on the ground. We are looking at what is happening, and then they will respond appropriately. They tell me that they have enough relief items to cater for the situation that has arisen.
Okay, thank you, Richard, for your time and for that quick update from the central region. We know there's been some serious flooding in that area, and as he's explained, it's something that happens almost every single year. The question is, why are we having perennial flooding and there seems like no cohesive plan to deal with it once and for all? We will interrogate this matter shortly. I'm joined in the studio this afternoon by the president of the Ghana Institute of Planners, Alfred Kwesi-Poku. He is to my immediate left, and a hydrologist, Ebenezer Osekre. He is joining us this afternoon. Thank you, sir, for your time. Thank you for joining us. My extreme left. Okay, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Alfred, Mr. Edupoku. Yes, sir. For this matter of architectural design, I'm sure that you've listened to the reports in recent times, places getting flooded. For you as a planner, sitting back and watching this, what exactly are we doing wrong here?
Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon, and I'm glad to be part of the discussion. We are doing a number of things which, in our parlance, the planning department, we are saying that Accra, for example, has been planned very well. It has not been built very well. Because what we see on paper, there's so much technical personnel, technical efficiency, that if we're talking about Accra here, there's nowhere that we haven't laid down a good plan. But we haven't done that. The next is for the implementation that needs the policy makers taking the foot to say that this must be done, taking a stand, providing money and all that. We know that generally Accra is having a topographical defect. It's a low-lying city. All the seas running, every water running. If you go to them, their emblem, what they're waiting some Ghana, meaning all rivers flow into the sea. So here, by all means, is an estuary, as it were, and therefore we have this challenge. But there have also been other engineering solutions presented, prepared, and kind of relay it at various workshops and seminars in which, not that we finish and we send the documents to the government, not this government. I mean, you can know the history of that. And so you do all these things. The final thing is that, are we really committed?
Okay, but before we get to the point of commitment and who's not doing his job, in the work you've done, in the documents you prepared and drafted and sent to government to deal with, what's in that document? Briefly tell us what the solution should be. Yes, indeed, we're not building right, but what's the solution here? What do we do?
Well, for example, two major things that last year, which when we had a major one with several deaths, we had earlier even made it to the government that we need two things very quickly. Something we call mitigation ponds. The mitigation pond is creating, a pond in the course of the waterway where the flood is supposed to be higher and so on, so that it will block the flow of the river, the flood, and then hold it for a minute or two before it overflows into the next site. Once it's done like that, it can even be trapped into an urban agric. So you can create about 1, 2, 3, 4 from wherever you have traced the source of the thing, so that it would reduce the speed and the flow of the thing, so that doesn't become that thing, whatever. Again, we have also been recommending retention basins. Retention basins are like what we have in Tema on the seashore, seaway. There's a kind of a space you don't build anything, left to be on its own, so that water can stay there for some time before it flows into where it wants to go. Again, the human factor concerning don't build in waterways, has also been recommended over and over. We are speaking from the planning point of view.
Yes.
Apart from drains and things that engineers
and we'll get to that with the hydrologist.
4 or 5 years back, we were asked, we meaning town country planning, was asked by the AMA, go run and count all the houses, or identify and count them that are on waterways.
How many did you find?
900 of them. And then the report was given to the mayor. He said, serve them notice. If they think they have permits, let them come and defend it, and we see who gave them the permit. About a year lapsed, and nobody came. And so it means that all those structures or development didn't have permits. I'll explain something about the permit soon. So what happened was that the AMA started pulling them down. After the first 300 structures have gone, the rest teamed up and went to court, got injunction, and it didn't continue again. So as of now, whether the 300 that were pulled down have even been brought back, we do not know yet. So if you would impede the flow of water, it will find its own way and it will go along.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about the permit shortly. But once you brought in the issue of the mitigation basins and the ponds that we need to look at, I might as well bring in the hydrologist now. Mr. Osekre, thanks for joining us once again.
Engineer Osekre, please.
Engineer Osekre, sorry. Thanks for the correction. So, for you, the major talking point has been, okay, we need drains in the capital. They need to be expanded so the water that gathers when it rains flows into the proper channels. Why don't we have it now? What's the problem?
Well, like my senior man said earlier, yes, Accra City was planned very well, but then the implementation. And I refer that to the city engineers because, or the building inspectors, they are supposed to be checking these things.
And these people are the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And they don't seem to be doing the job that they are supposed to do. So you see people building in waterways, etc. Now, talking about, like my senior man said earlier again, Accra is a low-lying area. You see, but I always refer to countries like the Netherlands. The entire country, like I say, 99% is water, the land covered by it. But they've been able to reclaim almost 96%. Even their main, what do you call it, airport is 27 meters below sea level. And we are only at mean sea level. So you can imagine the challenges. Now again, people build on waterways. The particular authority to ensure that the building is demolished, that's with reference to the city engineers, don't do it. So each time it rains, there is
the flooding.
Okay, but then we are also supposed to be harvesting water. If you go to Israel, they harvest water to do their irrigation. So why then do we allow the rain to fall and go waste and cause?
It's looking more like this problem being hydra-headed. On one end, the AMA needs to do a lot in terms of enforcement, but there's a human element to it as well. Those who are building in waterways. Gentlemen, I think we can agree at this point that in terms of enforcement, nothing is happening, is there?
Sure. I mean, that lies with the political authority. We're talking about building inspectors. At the time the Melcom disaster happened, there were 19 building inspectors in the AMA. The whole AMA. Commerce was doing better, they had 21 of them. Last year, AMA's number has risen up to 29. So imagine 29 people going around Accra enforcing building rules.
Virtually impossible.
Very impossible.
And it's good you say there's a political twist to this. So I just want us to play the clip of President Mahama talking about this challenge with the flooding today and what is being done to fix it. He says that per their plan and the efforts they put in place is much better than last year. Let's listen to him and then hear from the experts as to whether this, in their view, is the best way to deal with this challenge.
We're still faced with major challenges. Just yesterday, we were faced with floods almost a little 1 year after the anniversary of the June 3rd flood and fire disaster. Flooding is a natural occurrence and it is being exacerbated by climate change. Rainfall has become erratic and sometimes falls in significant quantities in a very short period of time. Yesterday in Accra, in parts of Accra, 184.2 millimeters of rain fell within the period that we had the downpour. Much work still needs to be done. We have removed 487,000 tons of silt from the drains in Accra. And I believe that if we had not removed as much silt, the flooding that happened yesterday would have been even worse than it was. But we must continue to work to minimize the incidence of flooding. And I wish to assure you that government has a commitment to do that. And let me also point out that human attitudes and human activities continue to exacerbate the phenomenon of flooding. And so we must not give up on our determination and effort to continue to educate and create awareness of our people that the drains that exist are not meant for dumping garbage. They are meant as storm drains so that when rain falls, the water will be able to flow out of our communities. Various suggestions have come as to how we can ease the pressure on Accra. Accra's population is estimated to have exceeded the 4 million mark. And so we'll continue to appraise these suggestions and see whether these are not alternatives that we can look at so that we ease the perennial flooding and congestion that Accra is subjected to.
The President speaking last week on the flooding and the effort that have been put in place to ensure that we see less and less of the casualties we're seeing today. But let me ask the experts whether this presents a very potent and credible plan in dealing with the perennial flooding we're seeing in Accra and in the country. I'll start with you, Mr. Puko.
Yeah. He mentioned a quantity of debris that have been desalted from the drains. It's a good effort, but in the first place, you did have been there. If you're in Accra, even the sanitation management teams, when they collect the waste from the homes, where do they take it? It appears that even where to go and dump the collection has become a difficulty. So, and you look at the weekend, the monthly sanitation program, laudable as it is, but the complaint as you have it now is that when they have evacuated the things from the drains, it just left there. Who collects them? So we need to put all together that we have a place that we dump them and ensure that people put it in places where it can be picked and go, so that the drain doesn't become a source of a dumping site, so that they'll put it there. Okay. So the first thing is that they shouldn't have been put it there, but there's no space for them also to do, so they do it there. So much must be done from that angle.
And in terms of that, you mean the AMA, the waste management companies must crack the whip.
The waste management are already available, and we hear them complain about they are not being paid. They can collect them, but where do they send them? For the whole of Accra and the 16 MMDAs and beyond, we have PON. And then there's a small place at Amasamai. PON was supposed to last about 8 to 10 years, but by the 5th year, the place is filled up. Because that's the only engineered landfill site that, refuse can be sent there.
You are a planner, and so I need to ask you this. Are we fixing or dealing with this challenge on a need-to-know basis? It happens today, we look at it, we say, okay, let's put this there, and that's it. Or we have stopped doing the long-term planning for this challenge.
The plan is there, and I said that even as far back as about 59 and all the 70s, if you go through the records, that there's sufficient information and data and preparation that a lot of things must be done. But, for example, this program is run at a time when it's raining. Anytime from September going when it's dry up to the next year, nobody will call a program like this. So all of us, we become, aware of ourselves and the danger when it starts raining. If you're in Accra, besides June, July, August, you can say for the rest of the year without any problem with the rain. And so we all forget about it. So the nation forgets, the people forgets. If there's no pressure from the people, the government also forgets.
I see. Okay. Mr. Secretary, for you, Engineer Secretary, for the challenge that we've looked at, something needs to be done for enforcement.
Sure.
I remember some years ago, you did not put garbage in the gutter. The enforcement was strict. What have we lost in that vein? What is wrong with us? What have we done wrong?
Yeah, I think now that we have the assemblies in place, they should be seen to be doing that. They have to implement, like for instance, in every assembly we have building inspectors. But it appears we talking earlier about AMA, but with the decentralization system, we have places like Lekma, Lad, Dadikpong, and other places that they are supposed to implement those laws. For instance, the monthly cleanup campaign. You see people selling. You see people going about their normal business, which shouldn't be the case.
Is this lack of political will or what to enforce these laws?
Yeah, to a certain degree.
I think we need political orientation for the people up there, and those of us also down.
And for those up there who exactly
government in power,
the chief
executive assemblies. Yes, assemblies. Talking about the building inspectors, the whole of AMA has only 29. How many do you have? Koforidua had one 3 years ago, only one, the whole region. I mean, sort of. But you used to have these town councillors. We call them in local parlance Sama people. As of now, we have about 2 or 3 batches of them who have finished school but have not been employed. Apart from the fact that there's a freeze on employment in certain sectors of the economy, there's a difficulty there. That school, we call it School of Hygiene, academically. It is run by the Ministry of Health. The syllabus, whatever, the curricula and the teachers and all. And when they have finished and graduated them, they bring them to the Ministry of Local Government to employ them. And so it appears that even the content of their training does not suit the Ministry of Local Government. And therefore, we realize that if you have been training them with a certain curricula in mind, and they come to the ministry, they probably don't fit there. So a good number of them are even have graduated, qualified certificates, but they can be absorbed to do this kind of
Okay. Now, gentlemen, as we have this conversation, I just need clarity on who we should hold responsible and what we should do today, because as it stands now, per the flooding and the reports we've had, it's clear that if we leave things the way they are, we see a lot more people dying, a lot more houses being submerged. So I'll start with you, Engineer Sekre. Who do we hold responsible? Who do we power pressure on? And what do we do to them?
Well, the city authorities and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
What do we do to them?
Well, I think there's the need for a lot of sensitization work to be done. Yeah, to create awareness. Yeah.
As it stands now, per your experience as a hydrologist, do you think the flooding will continue the way things are? Get very bad?
Yeah, sure. It will continue if we don't put the necessary measures or structures in place.
Okay, same question to you, Mr. Ripoku. Who do we hold responsible, first of all?
We should hold the population of Ghana responsible. We are not angry enough. 153 people die in a day, and nobody applied pressure to any quarter. You buried them, you finished. In other countries, if this has happened in another country, the population will mass up. The government, I understand that even up to now, the report of that incident has not been published. So we don't know what went wrong and who did what. And we are all quiet and going about our businesses. If the population stood up and said, we need report, let us know what went wrong and let us all get on, something will be done.
To what, mass demonstration?
A mass demonstration, media coverage, NGOs, professionals, everybody, including me and myself. We are all sitting down.
Would you be willing to go on a demonstration?
Why not?
If it is in the right direction.
The direction is already right. So let us all come together and say that this is not fair. Blow it up in the news. Announce it everywhere. Put the newspaper out there that tomorrow let's Ghanaians gather and tell government that 150 people up there, we still don't know any solution to that. And when we move out into that street, there's somebody who is responsible for something. We'll do it. Nigerians will say, if we see something, say something. You know.
You think we are too silent?
We are too silent.
Okay.
We are too silent.
Okay, gentlemen, so it's clear that for you, the people who are supposed to do their jobs are not doing it. We should power pressure on them to enforce in clearing people out of the waterways, checking human activities in the country.
Right.
That's the solution to the flooding in the crowd.
That's a starting point.
And in the country. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Okay.
Alfred Kwesi Poku is the president of the Ghana Institute of Planners, and also engineer Ebenezer Sekre is a hydrologist, sharing their thoughts with us this afternoon. These are the technocrats sharing their perspective with us on why we are seeing a lot more flooding in Ghana and what we need to do to fix it. He says that we are not angry enough. We'll go for a quick break at this point. We'll come back and we'll talk a bit more about other developments. So we are learning that up north, some alleged witches are receiving their lead benefits. These are our story and more after the break. Stay with us.